United We Listen is a podcast of United Way of Franklin County in Pennsylvania. Our podcast is intended to provide information and entertainment, not direct medical or financial advice. We recognize that there are many providers in our community that are available to you for resources and guidance. We hope this brings you information that is helpful in your life. If you find our podcast helpful, please like, share, or subscribe, or better yet, make a donation to United Way of Franklin County to help expand our work. Welcome to United We Listen, a new podcast by United Way of Franklin County,
located in beautiful South Central Pennsylvania,
bringing you into the heart of our community's most pressing issues to provide a place where together we can really tune in and listen to people. I'm Amy Hicks.
And I'm Kelly Fraser. Each episode, we're here to connect, listen, and learn alongside you.
We'll explore topics like early education, health, and economic realities, all through the lens of those closest to the issues.
We'll hear from local experts and change makers who are working to make a difference right here in Franklin County.
Join us as we dig deep into important conversations, because when we listen, we grow stronger together. Welcome to United We Listen. I'm Amy Hicks, your host, along with Kelly Fraser. We're here to talk about topics that are important in our community and topics that are important to us here at United Way. This morning, we're talking with Mike Straley and Sarah Fisher with Leah's Legacy. And specifically, we're going to be talking about drug and alcohol addiction, treatment, and recovery process. So this is a challenging topic. It's a topic that may be hard to listen to. So I'm going to warn you up front. This is a topic that can be emotional for us and can be hard for a listener. But it's a topic that needs to be covered, and that's why we're having the conversation this morning. So Sarah and Mike, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Sarah, I'm going to ask you first. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and what you do with Leah's Legacy and your work?
Yeah, I've been working with Leah's Legacy now as a certified family recovery specialist for about 4 months now, so it is relatively new, but I have been a recovery specialist for like about 2 to 3 years, an outpatient. So and I have my own personal experience with substance use. I've been in recovery for about 4 years and 4 months now. And I've also, thank you. I've also been impacted by my family's substance use as well. Both of my parents have struggled, and I've had siblings that have struggled as well. And I've also lost a couple of people to overdoses. So
it's a hard road.
Yeah.
But it brings you to help other people.
Yeah, that's definitely why I got into this. I hadn't even heard of what a recovery specialist was until I was in jail myself. I was just sitting there waiting to get out, and somebody came to visit me, and he was a certified recovery specialist, and that was when I was like, okay, well, maybe if I get my life together, I can try to do the same thing, which I ended up doing. It actually came after a period of not being able to find a job, and I was kind of just settling before that for whatever I could get, so I think everything kind of aligned for me to be able to really take this path,
Right. That's fantastic. I want to come back and talk more about the work you're doing now, but I want to come to Mike first. And Mike, can you talk a little bit about Leah's Legacy and what brought you to this mission?
Well, our daughter, Leah Renee Straley, passed on Valentine's Day 2018 from fentanyl poisoning. She is forever 26, and my wife and I wanted to do something to help others, and we really didn't know what at that point. Everything was raw. I got to tell you, it's still raw. Grief does not go away. And we have a wonderful backstory on how Leah's Legacy came about, but it's a foundation that we founded and created in 2019, and we became an official 501c3 nonprofit in June of 2019. And, really, we just want to provide joy and outreach to women that are in recovery. And now we have taken Leah's legacy and moved it. We've moved the needle quite a bit over the last year and a half, 2 years, especially with the addition of Sarah coming on board as our certified family recovery specialist.
That's wonderful to be able to turn something like this into a mission that's helping people, and I'm just in awe. Mike, I've heard you speak before, and I've been part of a room that all broke down into tears over hearing the story, and I think many of us, from our own lives, identify, and I think we wanna help, and when somebody's going through pain and needs help, it's just hard to know where to step in. So toward that, Sarah, can you talk a little bit about the work you're doing now, and what that is and how it helps?
Yeah, so it's really based on the lived experience aspect of it. So meeting people where they are, and sometimes people can get it confused with therapy in a way, but it's not. It's not based on any kind of professional experience. It is a professional role, but it's more like a peer-to-peer type of role. So really just meeting with people, it's kind of like a coach. I would kind of like to, when I try to explain it, I like to think of it as being like a recovery coach, and just really walking alongside people rather than directing them in any way, and helping them, develop a plan to reach their goals and that kind of thing. Getting them connected to community resources that could be helpful for them on their journey as well, whether they need to get into treatment, they need help with finding housing, transportation, really just all of that life stuff, because recovery really isn't about just not doing substances anymore. It's about rebuilding your life. I know when I first got into recovery, I had nothing at all, really. So I had to rebuild that all from the very bottom, and having support along the way. And I definitely had support. My aunt mostly, she's like number one. But, I didn't have a recovery specialist myself, but I think that if I did, it would have made the journey a lot smoother, and it wouldn't have been as difficult, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sarah, one of the questions I'm thinking about from the beginning is, how do you know when you're in trouble? How do you know when it's time to get help?
I would say, for me, I was aware pretty early on. I just wasn't ready to quit for a while. And even after I was ready to stop, I wasn't really able to. I think it has to get to the point where the positives that you're getting from it, and I say quote unquote positives because, in some ways, nobody would use substances if it wasn't doing something for us, right? And for a lot of us, it numbs the pain, and it, sometimes life feels too painful to really be present for. But for me, I would say that I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to engage with other people. I didn't want to do anything unless there were substances involved. And I was 13 at the time when I started drinking alcohol.
Wow, young.
Yeah, so, my friends would, go out and do other things, but if alcohol wasn't involved with them, I would not want to hang out with them. I would rather, just stay home and drink by myself. And so that's really where it started for me. So I would say, just when it becomes the number one priority, things are starting to slip. When I did start working, I wasn't really able to keep a job. I would show up late, not show up at all, because I was just not able to keep hold of everything, I guess.
Right. That's a lot. Sarah, I'm sure there are parents out there wondering, how does a 13-year-old get hold of substances?
Well, it really depends on what the family is like, right? My family was very dysfunctional from the very beginning. Like I said, both of my parents struggled with alcohol use. My dad was more of an alcoholic. He wasn't really in the home that much, but it was definitely accessible to me and my siblings. And I think for other teenagers, probably just going and hanging out with friends. And if their friends' parents say, if say if the parents that are worried about it, they don't drink, so there's no alcohol accessible in their home. Well, there might be alcohol accessible in another parent's home, and the children are going there to drink,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's accessible.
Yeah,
That's what parents need to know, is it is accessible.
It is accessible. And even if the parents, like I said, if they're not alcoholics themselves, even if they don't have to be alcoholics, but even if they don't drink alcohol themselves, it's still going to be accessible somewhere. I know me and my siblings, we used to like try to find someone who was over the age of 21 to go and buy it for us. And you might be surprised, but there were people who would do that. So, yeah. We would wait outside the liquor store until it opened and tried to get somebody to go in and get us alcohol at that point. So I think another problem is, a lot of where I was kind of running around was Waynesboro. And, back then, and I don't know about really now, I don't think there still really isn't like too much to do, I don't think. So, with that, it's kind of like everybody's looking for something fun to do. And, then you involve substances, and it seems to be the only thing to do other than going to Walmart at midnight. But now you can't even do that. So now it's not open till midnight anymore. So.
Yes.
Or
well,
all night anymore, yeah.
I think always been a complaint for teenagers is nothing to do.
Yeah.
And so it's watching that if kids don't have enough that's constructive to get into, there are always other things to get into.
Yeah.
When you identified that you had a problem that was maybe more than you could solve on your own, what did you do?
Well, it was a long process. I was pretty much forced into treatment at a young age. I think I was 16 the first time I went to treatment, and it was because of legal intervention. As a result of my drinking, I got into some trouble. I did things that I would not have been doing if I wasn't. And so I was on probation, and, one of the requirements of probation is to abstain from substances, and I couldn't do that. And gradually I ended up getting involved in other types of substances, just like different kinds of pills, opioids, stimulants like Adderall, things like that. At that point, I hadn't done my drug of choice yet, but I was pretty much doing everything. And so when I failed my drug test, my probation officer sent me to treatment. And, at that time, I'm 16 years old, and I'm sitting in rehab, and, I'm being told that you can never use substances ever again. At that point, I'm like, what are you talking about? But that was the first time the seed was planted. So I wasn't ready at that point, especially as young as I was. Like all of my friends.
You thought the party was going to continue, yeah, I would think.
I did. I did think so. And, yeah, so I think, as time went on, my addiction continued to gradually get worse. Like I said, I graduated to other types of substances. And this last time around was probably when I really realized that I was done. I wanted to be done. And I knew I couldn't do it on my own. And I got a DUI as a result of my substance use once again. And I had to go to jail. So that was actually, this time was the beginning of my sobriety. I had to go through the withdrawals and everything because I was doing heroin, but really it was fentanyl. Now it's pretty much all fentanyl. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, going to jail, does that automatically throw you into withdrawal? Like, is there a lack of access, I guess, at that point, or?
At that time, there was. I know now they'll give you MAT, so that's medication-assisted treatment. So Suboxone, they have other kinds like methadone, but in jail, usually it would be Suboxone. But I know when I was in there, they did not give it to me in the beginning when I was withdrawing. They gave it to me at the end, 30 days before I left, so I don't know what was up with that.
Oh.
Yeah. I think at the beginning they will give you, maybe... It's been a while, but kind of try to help you get through the withdrawal a little bit now. They did not do that in the past. But the other thing to keep in mind is if you're coming off any kind of opioid, if you take if they give you the Suboxone too early, that's going to throw you into precipitated withdrawal, which is like regular withdrawal, but 1,000 times worse. So it's really, sometimes it might be just better to get through it
Like on your own.
Yeah.
Without the assistance.
Without the medication.
Right.
I think. That's just me personally. But, I mean, they have other kinds of comfort medications they can give you in treatment, but, you know, I would strongly encourage anyone to detox in treatment rather than jail, because that's not a good experience at all. For me, it was just, I was already at that point where I wanted to be done, and I honestly needed to be locked in a cage, because, I mean, everybody's different, but with those withdrawals, they continue to get worse every time. And I think it's because there's other stuff now being put into the substances as well. It's not just fentanyl even. There's this xylazine stuff and medetomidine, which is like horse tranquilizers, apparently.
So sometimes you don't really know what you're taking.
No.
And that's scary.
Yeah, you really don't. And the scary thing is, too, for people that are using substances, if there's a batch and it actually seriously hurts someone, if someone overdoses, like, the people that are using might think, like, oh, that's actually good stuff, like, that's stronger stuff, so let's get that.
You get the bigger high,
Yeah.
in effect.
Yeah.
Mike, I'm going to ask you, maybe both of you, what are the signs that somebody around you might be using that, how hard is it to read what's going on?
Well, Leah's substance use disorder started at age 14 with marijuana, and it became a habit, and that habit led to the addiction of more stronger, potent substances. And actually, she hid her addiction to marijuana quite well for about 2 years, you know, and this was, you know, back in, you know, the early 2000s. But, you know, as a parent, we were very naive, but, you know, we could see changes physically, redness in her eyes, lack of appetite, and then just her demeanor. Fighting, mouth fighting, sassing back. You know, she's a teenager. And we're thinking, well, you know, that's just typical teenagers.
Right. You think they all do that.
But it got to the point where the verbal, and I'll use the word abuse, the verbal abuse, especially towards her mom. And we were always very supportive of Leah. But it just became out of control. And, you know, to this day, we still talk about the old Leah, which is the Leah that we raised and I taught in Sunday school. Versus the Leah that we did not recognize. And then obviously as she progressed, there was, you know, stealing of things, going into, you know, her mother's pocketbook and stealing money, you know, taking things and going down to the pawn shop and, you know, pawning off like her laptop computer and things like that. We rescued her computer, I think, 3 times. I personally drove to Towson, Maryland one time to get her laptop back. And that was not an easy voyage for me. It was very dangerous, as a matter of fact. But yeah, you know, those were some of the things that we constantly saw. And, you know, when it was the old Leah, you know, she was loving and caring and very responsible. But when she was using, we could tell right away.
Changes you into like a completely different person, for sure. Those personality changes is like definitely the big one that I think anybody can recognize. But it is hard, like you said, when they're a teenager like that, it's really hard to tell, because any teenager, I mean, I was a brat, regardless of my substance use, you know, even when I wasn't. So
and teenagers they're going through so much anyway.
Yeah.
And you know, even just the maturing process can bring out a personality you're not as familiar with. Say
Absolutely.
that.
It's a hard period of time, especially for women, but for anybody, right? But like, you're finding yourself, you're learning about who you are, you know, it's a lot. And then not to mention like the stuff going on with peers, you know, like there's all this pressure to fit in and to, you know, and if you're not making those connections, that can make it really difficult too, and you're going to search for that connection somewhere else. Yeah. But I think like Mike said, the personality changes. For me, I think it would be, it's different from the outside looking in, I think too, but I think disappearing for long periods of time, not showing up for like family functions, that kind of stuff. Especially when it's other types of substances, disappearing into the bathroom for long periods of time. Yeah. And the anger, definitely, because in a way you're trying to defend the addiction and keep it going, even if that's not really what you want. But it absolutely changes you into an entirely different person. And it's interesting, like everybody who uses substances, they kind of develop the same personality. Angry, being dishonest, stealing, all of those things. And it's not who we really are, but we become one.
It feeds the addiction.
Yeah.
And that's where it lies.
Yeah.
So if you're a family member or with an adult, maybe a close friend or somebody in the household, what can you actually do at that point that might make a difference?
If you
suspect they're using.
I think just having an open, honest conversation with them in a non-confrontational way, just saying like, hey, I've noticed these behaviors. I'm feeling a little concerned. Is there anything you want to talk about? I'm here for you, that kind of thing. They might get defensive no matter what, honestly. Sometimes, no matter how you approach it, they're going to get defensive. But if they know that you're a safe person for them to talk to and that you're not judging them and you want to help them, maybe when they are ready they'll feel more comfortable to come forward to you. So sometimes it's just like planting a seed.
Now, is there anything that you would recommend, like how do you talk about addiction and substance use with, I guess we've been talking about children and teens. What would be
someone who's triggered, somebody who's already in abuse and triggered?
And I was even thinking before, maybe kids are exposed to so much right now at such a young age. Are there things that you would recommend, or how would you recommend talking about those so that kids are aware of all of this and the side effects and what can happen?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that lately because I don't have any kids myself, but I have a niece and nephew. And my nephew at this point, he's 8, so he's young. But it's still it worries me with our family history. I mean, there's a lot of addiction in my family and mental health stuff. So I think about that and, how my brother is going to handle that conversation and if I should help him with that conversation at all, if he would want that, because of my personal experience with it. I think especially for kids that are predisposed, it's very important to have that conversation. And I think just being honest about the real effects of it and what happens and how it happens. You don't think, like, no one thinks that they're going to become, they're going to have an issue with addiction. No one thinks that, like, okay, I'm just going to...
No one plans for that.
Yeah, like, I'm going to, drink with my friends, have a little bit of fun, and 4 years later, I'm going to be sitting, in jail because I couldn't stop shooting heroin. It's nobody, like you said, nobody plans that and nobody expects it. So I think just making them aware, like, hey, these are the red flags to watch out for. And like I said earlier, for me, it's, that's all I wanted to do. If you're using it to cover up something else, to numb something out, I think that's a big red flag. And that's what I would want to tell my nephew anyway. Just like, be safe, check in with yourself, remain self-aware, because we can tell kids all we want, like, don't use substances, and telling them what to do. And of course we don't want them to, but if they do, go against our advice, we need to know how we're going to kind of help them and make sure they're not going down worse of a path. Because, adults in my life definitely told me, don't drink, don't do drugs, but I drank and did drugs. I think when it's coming more from a place of, when you know what's behind it, like why you're being told not to do those things, and what could happen if you do, and what to look out for, what red flags to look out for within yourself if you're going down that path, then you'll be more likely maybe to come and talk to someone before it starts getting really bad to where you can't turn it around.
Right. Coming from a place of love, where I think it always is.
Always, yeah.
But I think sometimes when you're in a parental role, it's so hard because of the expectations that come along with the parent-child relationship, to not have a conversation that comes from a place that could be perceived as judgment.
Yeah.
Or just simply expectations.
And it's fear, right? Like, I think, like, and like I said, I don't have kids, and Mike, you can probably speak on this more, but like, I feel that I would be terrified if my child was doing that, if they were using any kind of substances, right? So it's like, you're in a panic mood, and you want to do whatever you can to help them, and, you know, sometimes because of that, I mean, there's a lot of emotions going on, I'm sure.
We don't do our best parenting when we're in panic mode. I know that. I don't do my best parenting when I'm in panic mode.
And I think that's why it's so important that stories like both of yours are being shared, because in such detail and so open. So we really appreciate both of you sharing your stories, because I mean, that's one way to share if you don't have like the personal experience, but being able to hear someone's true raw experience, and this is what is going to happen. So thank you for being so open. We really appreciate it.
And I think that's, you know, the reason why I try to get as many speaking engagements as possible, whether it's to the middle school students or high school students. And I've been in various schools that even, you know, speak to students at a university setting. You know, they're hearing it from not their parents, but they're hearing it from a parent. And when I show the picture of our daughter Leah, and then, you know, for instance, I always have a salt shaker with me, you know, and I intentionally, and I get close to the students, and I, you know, have the salt shaker, and I put the grains of salt in my hand, and I walk around, and I, you know, let them look at that. And I said, all it takes is, you see these little grains of salt? Well, if this were fentanyl, all it would take would be 2 grains. And in my hand, I probably have over 100. And I throw it up in the air. And I said, this would be, if it's an assembly, for instance, this would be enough to wipe out the entire assembly. It's real, you know. And, you know, that's what I, you know, share with folks. I share Leah's story, her struggles. You know, we tried tough love. My wife Robin and I, we tried tough love. And I would not recommend tough love. You got to love them conditionally and love them unconditionally. And, you know, we found out early on as parents that were very naive that you cannot force someone into treatment. I know Sarah talked about being forced, you know, with the situation, with the law and the legal situation. But, you know, in Leah's case, every single time she came to us and she's like, Mom and Dad, I need help. And so we got her that help, you know, whether it was a, you know, local agency or organization. Keep in mind, this was, you know, back in 2008, 2009, where there really wasn't a whole lot of help available. But, you know, she traveled as far as California. And she was in and out of California. She was in and out of detox centers and sober living homes 12 different times. And like I said, the best treatment that she had received and the farthest that she traveled was in California. And at that point, they were well ahead of the curve in terms of various treatment methods and things like that. But, you know, it was one of those things where we could have very easily, you know, grabbed her by the arm and said, you know, look, you're going here, you're going there, but that would not work. And I remember one Sunday evening, Sarah had referenced, you know, being away for a while, and we hadn't seen Leah in probably 3 or 4 days. And as a dad, I was, you know, and obviously with her mom as well, we were very concerned, and there were no, you know, return phone calls, no text messages. And finally, there was a knock on our door. I think the doorbell rang, and we opened up the door. And Leah was always a very neat, orderly person, a young lady. And honest to God, when I opened the door up, there stood my daughter. And she was a mess. I mean, she hadn't showered in a couple of days. Her hair, which she had beautiful hair, it was so disheveled. She was a mess, and she was going through withdrawal. And I just remember I helped her in the house, and, you know, she sat on the couch, and I can still see this. And she's like, I need help. I need help. And so Robin started making calls. And ultimately that call, that wasn't the first time, but that was one of her low periods. And then Robin started making calls, and she ultimately wound up in California, which Robin actually, by the way, accompanied Leah to California to make sure that she arrived there safely.
Mike, how do you hold it together as a parent when you're walking through that situation? What do you do to keep your feet moving in the directions you need to go?
Well, when we had our daughter, it was a situation where we just wanted the best for her, and there were a lot of sleepless nights, and hoping that when she did go into detox and in sober living homes that she was safe, and that I could actually get a good night's sleep. And, she had her good days and good weeks and good months, but she also had her bad days and bad weeks and bad months. And we knew that home was not the answer. And as a dad, that was very difficult to say that, you're no longer welcome in our house. But, you really need the best places to be surrounding yourself with peers. And that was the other thing out in California. They did everything together at the sober living home. And some sober living homes are different where you're on your own. But in the facilities that she was at, when they did things together, meaning going to meetings and going shopping to get grocery shopping together and having outings, that was the camaraderie. And so, that worked out best. When she decided to come back to the East Coast, she was also in another sober living home in Ephrata, PA. And it was a wonderful facility. But then when we lost her, the grief does not go away. Grief is a relentless teacher. It makes you decide, will you be broken? Or will you build something from the wreckage? And, Robin and I, we decided that, we wanted to honor our daughter, and we wanted to do something to help others. And so that was the creation of Leah's Legacy.
Tell me a little bit about Leah's Legacy and what you're doing now. Your mission has grown.
Yeah, it certainly has. What started out with a simple purple bag, and there's a backstory to that, but, we go, the very first presentation with a purple bag filled with essentials. Because what you got to understand is, when folks go into sober living, sometimes the only thing that they have on their backs is literally what they have on their backs. That's what they own. And so, Leah had received a bag. It was a garbage bag, actually, at the sober living home in Ephrata during Christmas time in 2017. And, it was filled. There were nicely wrapped presents. But there was one bag, and it was a garbage bag, and Leah would be the type that would stand back and let everyone else go before her. And of course, all the ladies got the nicely wrapped presents, and Leah had the garbage bag. But inside the garbage bag was a purse, and it was filled with gift cards and essentials like chapstick and toothpaste and toothbrush and hair comb and hairbrush and so on and so forth. And so we decided that, we wanted to do something. And like I said, there's a backstory there where, during church, right after we had her memorial service, there was a card that came across my shoulder, and it was our friend behind me. And on the card, it said, "Be a voice." And I didn't know what that meant, but I kept the card. And, I put it in our walk-in closet, and I looked at it each morning and each night, and I prayed on it. And it was about 3 months after Leah's passing. We still hadn't figured out what we wanted to do. And on my way home from work one spring evening, this audible voice, it wasn't a loud audible voice, but it was a voice that said, "Recreate the bag." And, I said to myself, sometimes when I'm in the car alone, I talk to myself out loud, and I said, "Recreate the bag," in the form of a question. And the voice said, "Recreate the bag." And all of a sudden I knew I knew what we needed to do. And I went home and I said to Robin, I said, the garbage bag that Leah had received, we need to recreate that, only it's going to be a reusable drawstring purple bag. Purple because that was her favorite color, and also purple seems to be is the color of overdose awareness. And so we put our heads together and tried to come up with what Leah had received in that garbage bag. And so we added to it, and then we cobbled together a letter to our friends and family and asked them if they would help us financially. And we got $1,200, and Robin ordered all these items in bulk, and that was really the beginning. And we intentionally went up to that same sober living home where Leah had received the garbage bag, and this was in December of 2018, a year later. And we weren't even an official 501c3 nonprofit yet, but we delivered 16 purple bags filled with essentials. And they were to her friends, and a lot of those ladies were still there when Leah was there, and so they knew about Leah's journey, but they didn't really know what had happened. And so we shared Leah's journey, and then we gave those ladies 16 purple bags. And that was really the start. And if you were to walk into our operations center, which we built on our family property, because we were running out of room in our house, we were shoehorning things into our home with all these supplies. And so we wound up building an operations center on our family property. And if you were to go in there now, you would see that card that said "Be a Voice." It's framed, and it's my inspiration. Each and every time I go in and out of that building, I look at the card, and underneath the card is a tote board. And every time that we do a presentation to ladies with a purple bag, those bags are counted. And if you were to go in there today, you would see the number 1208. We have presented 1,208 purple bags to women in recovery, as far as Harrisburg and Ephrata, over into Maryland, Hagerstown, Frederick, and then obviously throughout Franklin County. And that was really the start. But now, we acquired my aunt and uncle's house, which is next door, and that's Leah's gathering place. And it's a modest house. That's where Sarah works out of. That's where my wife has Leah's Cookie Bite Bake Shop, where she does decorated ice sugar cookies. And all the proceeds from Robin's Cookie Bite Bake Shop and everything that we do, whether it's, an organization like yours, we use those proceeds to benefit Leah's legacy. And now with the addition of Sarah as a certified family recovery specialist, we're able to offer certainly expanded services, something that I had, 2 years ago, that was, just a line on a piece of paper, that we were hoping to do as a resource center, as a hub recovery resource center. And now it's up and going, and now it's a reality.
It's amazing.
And so that's what we're doing. And now, with people that are in it, and I say people, not just women, but people that are in addiction, people who are in recovery, people that need grief support, we have those services, and we can offer an array of services thanks to the grant that we received from the opioid settlement money.
I'm curious, when you hand one of those purple bags to someone, what are the reactions like?
A lot of hugs and a lot of tears. Yeah, there are a lot of stories out there. A lady that was in a local sober living home here, right down the street, she asked me to speak. She now is a director at a facility in Mount Airy, Maryland, and she asked me to speak over there. And she told me that she still has her purple bag that she received at Gracie's place, and that she has it on her bed. She used some of the things that were included in the purple bag, but she places that purple bag on her bed. And obviously she's, got I don't know how many years of recovery, but she used that purple bag as her inspiration. And that really, the night that she shared that with me when I was speaking to that group, that really provided inspiration to me. She said that was her inspiration, but her sharing that story was, quite frankly, my inspiration. And as I was coming back home on Interstate 70, needless to say, there were quite a few tears shed because I know that we're doing the right thing. And that's just one story. But how a simple purple bag filled with essentials can mean so much to people. That's a blessing from above.
When you hand those purple bags out, you're letting someone know you see them. And that's hugely significant. So yeah, you're making a difference.
Thank you.
If I have someone in my life that is working through recovery, what are the best things I can do to support them? I think sometimes people try to make less of a situation than it is. And when you see someone struggling, but you don't always know what the right thing to do is. So
it's really hard to know what the right thing to do is. It really is. Because no situation is the same, right? It's never black and white. But I think, number one is, educating ourselves. So for those of us that don't have experience with addiction prior, I think it's learning about addiction. What is addiction? How does it work? I think for families, getting family recovery support, going to recovery support meetings for families like Al-Anon or Nar-Anon. I think there's a smart recovery for families too. And also, that's another service we offer at Leah's Legacy. It's not just for individuals who struggle with substance use disorder. It's also for family members, any loved one of someone who struggles with substance use. They can come and, ask whatever questions they have and just gain support through it, because I think that's really important. And Mike and I were talking about this yesterday, is self-care, taking care of yourself through your loved one's addiction. Because if you are just so hyper focused, and it's natural when your loved one is in a crisis and you want to help them, you're going to be so focused on trying to get them to where they need to be. But if that's draining you in the process, you're not going to really be of much help to them.
If you had one piece of advice for someone that is maybe realizing they're in a trouble spot, they haven't gone for help, what would that piece of advice be?
My number one thing that I think about when it comes to addiction and anybody struggling with it is what's going on underneath of that. Because the substance use really is just a symptom of something deeper, whether that's lack of connection, trying to cope with some kind of trauma, whatever it is. Sometimes we don't know what it is, but I would say number one, absolutely, get into treatment, but really take advantage of the resources that are there, like the mental health therapy, that kind of stuff, getting to the bottom of what's really going on. Because you could just take the substances away and stop using, but that's not going to last. Or you're going to pick something else up to put in its place if there's something missing, that you're trying to that's what the substances are doing. They're filling that gap.
It's sort of self-medicating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, how about as a family member of somebody who is in an abuse cycle of some sort, whether it's not quite to that point or is going through the trying to get better process, but struggling? What's the one piece of advice you would share?
Just continue to love them. And I know that may sound like an overused phrase, and sometimes it can be very, very difficult. And, if I had a do-over, which obviously I don't, but Sarah touched on it. I can't tell you how many times when Leah was struggling, I would say to her, I don't know why you can't just beat this battle. Why can't you overcome this? Why can't you do that? Blah, 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 blah. And I didn't realize what she was going through until literally 2 days after her passing. We had a gentleman came over, and he had lost his daughter, and he talked about the dopamine and what goes on in your brain with someone who's in addiction. And honestly, after he left, I got my iPad out and I researched for about 2, maybe 3 hours. And I sat there. Of course, I was already grieving because, Leah had passed literally, and it was two days prior. And I sat there and I thought, why didn't you research this while your daughter was alive to maybe better understand and maybe better help her? But I didn't. And that is one thing that is really has stuck with me. And Sarah touched on it. And that is, just know a little bit more about what they're going through. And Leah would love to journal. And, Robin found a lot of her journals. By the way, we include a journal in the purple bag as well. And, I don't know why, but the day that Robin found several of her journals, she just picked one and it just opened up. And I guess we were supposed to read this, and I'm paraphrasing, but her words were, I put my parents through hell and they didn't deserve this. And I struggled with this dreaded disease from the time I got up in the morning till the time that I went to bed. And God knows that I did not want this. But here I am. And it's been a struggle. And it's something that no one should ever go through. Those were the pages that my wife that opened up in that one journal. And she had all kinds of journals to pick from. And it was just that one that she picked. And those pages opened up to those words. And it harkened me back to, why didn't I learn more? Why didn't I learn more about my daughter's addiction while she was with us? To maybe help educate myself to better understand what she was going through.
I think it goes back to when we talked about it earlier, when you're parenting in a crisis mode, you're so narrow focused that you can't take a step back.
Yeah. We always want to fix the problem.
Right.
And we can't always fix the problem.
Right.
That's hard.
Yeah. That's the hardest part.
Lack of control and being able to, that's the worst feeling ever. And I'll tell you, and I say this all the time, I've been on both sides of the fence. I've been on the side of being the person in active addiction, and I've been the person who loves someone in active addiction. And hands down, from Leah's journal, I mean, that's how it feels. It's so helpless. You can't, just hopelessness. It feels like you're never, I didn't think I was ever going to make it out. And it's a miracle that I did. I really don't know how, but it's insane. I don't know. Very, very terrible feeling. But being on the outside looking in and having a loved one who's struggling, and you're sober for this, you're present. When I was using, I wasn't really present. I was miserable and lost, but I was numbed out most of the time. And when you have someone you care about so much that is struggling like that, there is nothing worse than that. There's nothing worse. I have always been the type to try to fix things as well and, take care of everybody and all of that stuff. But when you can't, there's nothing you can do to really get your loved one out of harm's way. They have to get there themselves. The best thing you can do, like Mike said, is love them anyway. Just love them, meet them where they are. Still protect yourself, of course, where you need to, but that's the hardest thing ever.
You all are amazing. I mean, to go through what you have been through and be helping to assist people, hopefully to the other side of this. I'm in awe. I'm in complete awe of what you do. So I just want to check in and ask if there's anything that we didn't cover that you feel should be brought to anyone who's listening.
I just want to say real quick that it's absolutely possible, to get into recovery. It's absolutely, it's not, I think we're told that it's impossible all the time, and people talk about how hard it is, and it is like really, really hard. It's very difficult, but I don't think that the outcomes are as bad as a lot of us think that they are. A lot of the people that I was using with are now in recovery and in long-term recovery. So I think that, it is possible. It's just about, like we were talking about earlier, getting to the root of the issue, having support for sure. Like, you've got to have support. It doesn't have to look one way. If you're not going to 12-step meetings or whatever, that's fine. But you got to have people around you that you can count on and you can talk to about it, and that are actually going to be positive supports in your life. And like I said, getting that treatment, and journaling is a big thing for me too. So just like making sure we're remaining self-aware and working through those things is really important. So support is like number one thing, I think.
I'm sort of going to take the opposite direction. I'm going to give you some stats and numbers, because when I speak, especially to organizations and agencies in Franklin County, invariably someone will put up their hand and they'll say, well, and wherever I'm speaking in a particular community, they're like, well, do we really have this issue, or, is there a problem with this? And I look at them and I say, yes, we do. And Franklin County and our communities, big and small, we have issues. And, the numbers bear it out. First of all, statewide, 14 people die every day from overdose. In 2010 to 2020, over 500,000 Americans died from the opioid crisis. And I'll boil that down to Franklin County. 2014, 11 overdose deaths, 15, 24, 16, an all-time high of 46. 46 families are still grieving, okay? And I'll go to 2021, 29 passed in Franklin County. 2022, there were 32 passing. 23, only 6. And that to me says that, what we're trying to do in Franklin County through Franklin Fulton Drug and Alcohol, the programs that are being instituted throughout the county, they seem to be working. And I know Franklin Fulton Drug and Alcohol have really put a lot of time and effort into these programs. And, agencies are working hard in trying to combat this. And, I'm thankful that, and I said this one time, well, I said it more than once, but the one time I spoke, and I said, what we're doing with Leah's legacy has been a blessing. And up shot this hand from this older lady. And she said, well, how can you say that this is a blessing when you've lost your daughter? And I said, well, ma'am, I could stand here for the next hour and share with you the stories of folks that have reached out to me, whether it was through phone calls, whether it's in person, letters, notes, text messages, emails, saying that they helped, whether they helped them directly or whether they've helped families. And, we are helping. Leah's legacy is helping. And we're, like I said, with the addition of Sarah and our expanded services and, agencies, like yours with United Way, we were fortunate enough to, and blessed, to get a grant to help purchase the essentials that go into those purple bags. So, it's a team effort. And I know this is something that Leah is very proud that we're doing. Sometimes Robin's, I'll lighten up the moment. Sometimes Robin, when she's baking all those cookies and she's got 300 cookies to decorate, she'll say, can you imagine Leah standing beside me and saying, Mom, what are you doing? What are you doing? Come on. And, it brings a smile to Robin's face, and it brings a smile. And it makes my heart feel good that we're doing. Yeah. Oh, I talked with her and our son, Chris. We lost our son on Leah's birthday in 2022 to a car accident. And I talk to my children every day. And so, like I said, everything that we're doing, we're grateful. And we just continue to, take our pain and turn it into purpose. And, we take our misery and, we've turned it into mission, and that's what we do.
Well, it's amazing what you do, and we appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us for this conversation today. I'm hoping that we can make a difference for people in our community, because I know this is such a hard thing for families to work through, and individuals that feel like they're out there on their own. The resources are there, but it takes an awful lot of personal fortitude to walk through it.
Yes.
Absolutely, and the resources are available. I think sometimes people aren't aware of the resources that are there, and I think that's something I kind of want to focus on too, is just raising awareness that, we're here and the other resources that are available. Because before I got into doing this kind of work, I lived in this area for a while, and I had no idea what programs and all of, resources were available. So I think just making sure the community knows that we're here and that you guys are here and that, everything is here. It's just, letting them know it's here and helping them access it. And that's a part of what we're trying to do too.
As a network of community providers, that's what we're always trying to do, is point people toward the right resources at the right time. Couldn't do it without the work you're doing. So thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Blessings.
Thanks for tuning in to United We Listen. If you heard things today that make a difference in your life, or if you think will make a difference for our community, please consider making a donation to United Way of Franklin County. You can visit us on the website at www.uwfcpa.org. This podcast is for information and entertainment purposes. Before making financial or medical decisions, please consult a professional you trust. If you like our content, please like, share, or subscribe, or consider a donation to United Way of Franklin County. Look for a link to our website on the platform you are using to listen.